So I think I can say a formal hi to everyone and a very warm welcome to this webinar, Developing Leadership Skills. I'm Ruchira Banka, the Principal Educational Consultant in Chiminli and your host for an educator for around 18 years now, having led the CBSE, the International Curriculum, the Cambridge and the IB at various stages of my professional career. I carry a personal mission to spread skill-based learning into and to bring this revolutionary change in the educational system, we need to join hands to create leaders. Yes, leaders who are able to take charge and owners of bringing in about this change. And I'm sure all of us have an agenda in mind to be able to come here to do our one bit to create these leaders who have skills to problem solve, to create and to innovate. And I would like to thank each one of you to have come here with this agenda, with this little one thing in your mind that truly aligns with the mission of Chiminli, that is to create global citizens. Chiminli is a one-stop platform where you find solutions to deliver skill-based education into your classrooms. We have facilitators sitting across the globe who partner with you in taking this journey of life skills education in your day-to-day teaching practices. Chiminli facilitators deliver these lessons to school students from grades 1 to 12 based on a well-structured curriculum inspired by the Harvard, UNESCO, the World Economic Forum, and so on. When we talk of leadership, I'm sure each one of us agrees that leaders must be emotionally strong and stable, they must be self-aware, motivated, good communicators, being able to work in teams, and yes, these are the skills that we at Chiminli try to expose our students to. Shimin is a Japanese term that means citizen. And in this endeavor to create global citizens, we wish to collaborate with as many educators who carry the same idea. In my search of like-minded educators, I met with Ms. Sonia Singh, who's our speaker for today. Hi, Sonia. Welcome to the webinar. Let me introduce her to you. Sonia Singh is a prominent leader in the education and training industry with a rich experience in teaching pedagogy. She comes with over 15 years of leadership experience in areas of classroom teaching, teacher training, and curriculum development. As a passionate educationist, she deeply believes in the strength of student agency and is clearly visible in her workshops where she equips her teachers with tools to bring student voice, choice, and ownership into their planning and learning. Exploring alternative assessments and prioritizing monitoring over measuring results has enabled her to empower educators and conduct authentic assessments in her schools. She is a strong believer in making connections between learning and real-life experience to prepare the future Gen Z. Her training models have used a balance of technology and experiential learning to suit specific needs of learners and educators. She has a varied experience in the CBSE curriculum, the Cambridge, and the IB, having worked with some of India's best schools as a leader. She is an expert at building contemporary learning concepts like conceptual building and learning, differentiation in classroom, inquiry-based teaching and learning, connecting learning with real-life situations, 21st century skills, lesson planning, and many more for schools across the country and internationally. She is an alumna of St. Stephen's College, Delhi University, and a master's in education, a trained instructional designer, and a content writer. Having undergone various IB and Cambridge workshops, she has built her own repertoire of practices for teaching and learning. Her passion to share and participate in the education community has enabled her to write articles and speak on podcasts, and of course, get her here today for this session. We look forward to this 1 hour of interactive learning. Welcome, Ms. Sonia, and thank you so much for sparing time to come and interact with all of us here. Stage is all yours.
Thank you so much. These things are always so embarrassing to hear. It's almost like, oh God, did I really do all of this? Okay, so yes, thank you so much. Joy coming to such stage, and I think I must thank Chiminli for giving me this opportunity. It's something which Chiminli believes is what I also truly believe. I think when we spoke, we just clicked immediately and we felt, yes, this is the platform, the right platform to have a discussion like this. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. We will just start with a quick introduction. I would like that if all of you can just type out in the chat quickly your name, the location that you are coming from, and what is the grade that you teach, or whatever, whether you're in the leadership position or whatever your role of responsibility is. The idea is Once I have a little insight into what you do, I will try during this 1 hour to give you examples which are relevant across all age groups. So if you could just do that, I'll quickly a minute and I'll keep reading all the chats so that I get an idea. Great to see Empyrean school teachers here. Hi, I have been a little passionate about, Empyrean. I'm a little biased. I've been with them for what, almost 6 months that I did a complete set of training workshops with them. So Empyrean, thank you so much for coming in. So great. It's nice to see that everyone is like across different grade levels. It's right from pre-primary and I can see DP as well. So wonderful.
You know, as Sonia and I were discussing prior to starting the session, that yes, the educators across are willing to learn, share, discuss, and I think take the learners to the next level. That's what we are looking forward to this session on.
Yes. So I will try my best to try and give you as many examples and strategies which are going to be relevant to each one of you in whatever you do, and also for you personally. So if you, I don't know how many of you had seen my LinkedIn post, I believe very strongly in the fact that, lead is not really just having a title. That's not important. So even if you don't have a title or a specific, job responsibility assigned you as a leader, I think each one of you also is a leader. So take this session more from the fact of also how you become a leader and how you help your students also become leaders. It will be very, very relevant for adults, for children, and for toddlers as well, I guess. So thank you so much. This is just on a slightly lighter note. Is it what is the current reality, or is this our future? Where leadership experience, are we going to count it as how many people following us on social media? So this was just on a lighter note. Yes, I guess if that is the case, I the chart. I may be a very, very good leader. So, but this would not really be who defines a leader. So let's go into today's session. Very simply to understand leadership skills as to what they are, why do we need to have them, and how do we actually develop them. So when I say what, it becomes very difficult if somebody asks you the question, can you define leadership skills? They're very difficult to define leadership skills. However, if I ask you that what are leadership skills, I am sure each one of you will be able to come up with at least 10 of them. So we will not waste too much of time on what are leadership skills, but go more into detail about the whys and the hows of this. So I'm going to begin by just a short little video. I know this is in Hindi. So in case if there are people who do not understand Hindi, please, the dialogues are irrelevant. So just ignore them. It is basically what is happening that is important. And of course, people who understand Hindi will follow the dialogues as well.
सर आपके लिए उस पार कार का इंतजाम किया है सर कराइए सर ये चल चल सर आपके लिए उस पार कार का इंतजाम किया है सर कराइए सर ये चल चल Yeah, I'm really sure. कुछ करो ना। यहाँ जाके क्या करूँगा? ऐसी जाने बूंदे आए, जाने कैसा दर्द लाए, सामने क्या है ये तेरे का है, तू बता दे। कौन तुझको पार लेगा, कौन होगा वो मसीहा, मुझसे तू ढूंढता है, वो ही है तू वही है। ये तेरा रास्ता है, तुझ में तेरा है सहारा, ये तुझको पार देगा, तू ही है तेरा किनारा। ये तेरा रास्ता है, तुझ में तेरा है सहारा, ये तुझको पार देगा, तू ही है तेरा किनारा।
So yes, that's, I think, the kind of leader that we expect everyone to be, and we would want everyone to be. No titles, no designations, no specific job responsibility, but somewhere where you decide to take the lead that you want to bring about a change. Little you can do, begin with it, and the moment you do, trust me, and one day we will have a brighter world. And that's exactly what we want our children to be doing, our students to be bringing about that change. So just with what Shiminli also says, we want our students to become the global. We want them to bring this change and have a brighter tomorrow. So this whole video brought in lots and lots of actually leadership skills, which you would have seen in this little child. I would like that whatever you, if you are comfortable, just on your cell phones, if you can go to the website menti.com and enter the code that will become visible to you and type out what is the leadership skill that you thought that little boy actually showed. So this code is right on top. It's 3820416. The website is menti.com. I mean, anyone, if you don't feel like doing that, just type out in the chat. The idea is absolutely okay. So yes, lots of ideas coming up, and that is true. I think the child was a problem solver. He took the initiative. I don't think he even realized what are my little hands going to be? What is that little strength that I have? How is it going to move that big tree? But I think he just took the initiative. He was self-motivated, beautifully said. No one had to tell him anything. In fact, if you notice in the video, there were people with the titles, with designations. You had policemen, you had politicians, you had college students sitting in the bus, you had everyone. You had a wife talking to her husband and saying, do something. But people said that, what is it that we can actually turn around and do? So the child was self-motivated. He was ready to take an attempt, that it's okay, even if I fail, it's fine. Yes, he inspired the others. He was confident. He could empower a lot of people. Courageous, fantastic. I like the word doer. He was actually a doer. So honestly speaking, if you see, the list just goes on and on. So what leadership skills are lots and lots of things. Of course, you can club these and you can put them together under smaller heads, but that's what leadership skills are, that we would like our children to have the problem solving skill, to have a decision making skill, for them to be risk takers. They should be able to accept the feedback. They should be reflective, responsible, critical and creative thinkers. It was nice to see, Ruchira, how Shimanli works a lot on this particular aspect. I think this is really the need of the hour. It makes people accountable for who you are. If you decide to take on a onus of doing a certain task, I think be accountable for it. It's okay. Take the feedback if it didn't go well. You have to be emotionally intelligent and, to be honest, a little strong. Finally, yes, of course, you have to have global citizenship. And when I say global citizenship, I mean not just the fact for all the countries. I would say purely from the fact of you as a student, as a little child, trying to realize that I have to think of everyone as one. If there is a problem, it affects everyone. Be self-motivated. Be aware of your own self. Really important to be a good communicator. Now, when I say communicator, it not necessarily means that, you have to be a person like me who loves talking and who will go on and on and on. But I think be a good listener, like just the way all of you are being, and have empathy, have a vision, have a goal. That's another very important aspect which generally gets missed. We have to develop in our students that how do they decide to take up a goal or a vision, however small it may be, but have that and then go for it. Teamwork. Every leader has to be a team member or a team player also. These are just some that I thought, and I'm sure there are many more which are there. If you feel there is anything else that I missed, feel free to just unmute and anything I missed? Mostly, most of them would have got covered actually in some form or the other. So, okay, so my next question to you, leadership in schools. This is because we are doing it for our students. Is it equal to being a student council or your prefects or your house captains or whatever you call them in your school? Or leadership is not equal to student council? Do we really just think that our students have to eventually become student council members? They have to become house captains. They have to become prefects. They have to become class representatives. Is that true or is that not true? You can just put yes or no in the chat. No, no, fantastic. No. Very true. Leadership need not be equal to student council. So if that is the case, then I don't think we as educators, we need to wait for our students to reach that particular grade level where they are going to finally stand for student council and then have a workshop for our students on leadership. This is what we generally end up doing. That if it is your primary school student council, maybe grade 5, grade 6, whatever is the highest grade in your primary section, that's when just before the electing your student council, we will invite a person and say, okay, fine, let's have a leadership workshop on that. Similarly for your senior school as well. So if leadership, not the student council, I think we need to start very, very early. We need to start as early as preschool and continue always till they actually graduate out of your school and maybe move into college as well. For all the parents who are here, who have grown-up children, remember your grown-up students, children also could be leaders. So let's try and make everyone a leader. How are these two different that we need to understand? Because this will help us keep this in mind, that if I am not focusing on student council, how am I ensuring that my students are actually leaders? A student council will always focus on getting things done. Okay, this has to happen. Let's get it done. As simple as something like, okay, fine, let's have on the corridor, everyone to walk in straight lines. It has to be done. That's a rule. It has to be done. Right? Whereas what the leaders are going to try and do is they're going to try and build teams and strengthen relationships. They will try and speak to those students, form a bond, and try and speak to their classmates and say, hey, don't you think we should not be running in the corridor and just maybe take a walk on it? So they will work always on strengthening relationships. That is what we need in our students. A student council most of the time would be busy in organizing certain kind of activities or events. It is expected out of them. That is what is told to them. Nothing wrong in it. I mean, student council also in itself has a certain job responsibility to do. Whereas the leaders would always motivate their team members. They will actually be the ones who will be speaking within to their house members and saying, hey, you're very good in this. Why don't you go and take part in this? So that is what is required. Student council usually tends to lead by authority. So very young in school, we start telling them that if you have a title, if you have a badge, you have that authority to dictate. I don't know whether that's the right attitude to give to them or not. I think that's also again debatable, but it comes in natural. It does, because that badge, the moment it comes up, it gives you that authority. Whereas a true leader is the one who will inspire, exactly like that little child who actually inspired everyone to come along and move that tree. The student council basically preserves and maintains the existing culture of your school, the things which are expected. That, okay, you need to be in complete uniform. If there are schools that ensure that the hair need to be neat and tied or cut short or whatever, they need to ensure on all of those things. Do not litter, everything dustbin in place, don't damage properties. That's existing culture. The leaders will shape the culture. They will ensure that they take everybody along, and they are the ones who actually shape that culture. So there is no authority asking them to do it, but they are the ones who are the culture. They are the culture of the school. So when we say there is a positive culture in school, it's the leaders in school that make it positive, and not really just the student council. So that's the difference and the reason why we should say that leader is in me. So to be honest, Leader in Me is actually an educational program which is run worldwide, but no rocket science in it. Everyone can actually try and do that. Basically evidence-based, and it believes in the fact that if you build leadership skills in your students, you will find that it will create a very high amount of trust in the school culture, and your foundation for your academic achievements will rise. Because the skills that we read in the beginning are actually the ones we need even for academic achievement. So you as a teacher will have a win-win situation. You will have everything. You would have had your students developing these leadership skills, and your students doing extremely well academically also. So it's a completely win-win situation. And how this Leader in Me program actually works, or what it thinks on, is it's on the theory of change. See, do, get. Very, very simple. If you change the way you see things, it'll influence what you do, and finally your results will change. But we need to change the way we see things. We do not need to see the things as, what can I do? I can't do anything alone. Change that attitude. I'm just sharing a small little example. In one of the schools that I was earlier working with, and I remember one of the grades was studying about climate change. So the teacher had shown them that famous picture, I don't know, you guys also would have seen, about, a polar bear sitting on that melted glacier. And it's usually on Google Images. If you ever try and look for effect of climate change, that's the first picture that comes up. You know, that polar bear sitting on absolutely a little piece of glacier, and the rest, everything has melted. And she was trying to show, and she was trying to get out that, you know, how our actions are actually doing this thing. And there was this little child who actually said, but how I'm sitting so far off, sitting here in Delhi, how is my action actually affecting the polar bear sitting so far off? So I'm not interested in this. And that's where I think the thought starts coming in, that do we really need to get our children to see things differently? That I sitting so far off also can bring about a change. So if you see things differently, it'll automatically bring a change in what you do. And when you think about that change in what your actions are, you will find that the results will change. So if you try even something as simple as this see, do, get, if you can put words up in your classroom at any age level, it is a very good affirmation for your students to keep seeing that change. It's basically changing your mindset. You know, something that we do a separate workshop on the fact that do not have a fixed mindset, have a growth mindset. That's exactly what it really means. Change how you think, and you will automatically get a different result. And that's what we are looking at. So leadership begins with me. Get every student to have that feeling, that not because there is going to be a student council election in your school, but everyone, this leadership is going to begin with me, because it is going to change my skill set and my mindset. And these skill set and mindsets that change are actually going to help me become an effective leader. And what is it going to help me in? It is going to be in my personal responsibility. It's going to help me achieve and set my goals. It's going to help me work collaboratively with others. And of course, it'll basically give me a lot of opportunities to serve and contribute to the larger world. So I will start moving a little ahead and stop thinking so much about me and start thinking about the others. So another quick question to all of you. I'm sure each one of you has that one superpower, that one super skill. Okay. So in the chat box, can you very quickly write out that one super skill, but also be honest to yourself, reflect back. What is that one skill which you think you would need to develop a little more? I'm sure all of us need to do that. Great. Don't give up easily. So yes, so like if I say my super skill that I talk about is collaboration, I think that's one of my super skill that I have. The skill that I still need to, I think, develop a little more is taking the onus of something. I still, start feeling a little at loss when I have to take an onus of a certain project independently and kind of do it. I still like to have the team taking care of it. So I think that is one skill I would like to work a little more on. Fantastic. So great. So, the idea behind doing this is that if something as simple as an activity like this, if you can get your students to be able to identify one of their super skills, make it like really fancy for them, they can actually enjoy it, have that. You can have little, for the little children, you can have little cutouts of superheroes and everything, and they can write out that skill, but help them identify that one skill which they need to develop on. Because that focus, if you start at the beginning of your academic session, you will be able to keep a track of how that child is actually developing those. And how to be able to do that is what we are going to be discussing now. So a 7-habit tree is basically a very famous model which is used by Covey. Now, this is used for various purposes. You can use it at various levels. What they try and do is that it says that you need to form these 7 habits, right? Now, these 7 habits, when you begin from habit number 1, if you see the first 3 habits are actually nothing but your private victory. So you or your children, if you get them to initially work on just that, that means they are going to have their own private victory. I will explain each of these habits in detail and tell you how you can actually have an activity assigned to this, which is also embedded with your curriculum, which is a part of your actual teaching learning, so that you are not specifically having separately a lesson. I know most of the teachers, most of the educators are always struggling for time. So if I tell them that you start doing this also, they'll turn around and say, my God, when am I going to actually teach? If I start doing all of this, how do I finish my curriculum? So no. So I'll just tell you that how in your curriculum, when you are actually teaching and learning, you can do each of these. And these are very, very simple. First 3 are all about your own private victory. The next 3 are your public victory. That outside you, when you are out in the public, you start having that victory. People will start identifying that, hey, he's got great leadership skills. And finally, in the end, renew yourself. You need to start all over again, right? So these are what is the 7 habits. The little ones, if there are any educators who teach pre-primary, remember for pre-primary, you can just call them the 7-habit tree to be happy. So they even use the word 7 for happy kids. Whereas for the older students, I think it's a great idea to explain this to them and tell them to take charge of it on their own because they understand these words. So when we are talking about be proactive, all that we are trying to tell them is that take the initiative, take the responsibility. For older students, this comes out very, very easily. You can give them projects, any work, any subject that you have. When you give them a project, tell them to take the initiative on their own. So the project should always have an end result. It should always have an outcome. Now, because it has an outcome, your second habit will come in its place, that you begin with the end in mind. Remember, we as teachers, we do that backward by design planning. That's exactly what the idea is. Inculcate in your students that don't just start working on a particular project or on a particular task. Think what is that final outcome that you actually need. Once you know that outcome, then you take the initiative and you move that. If we go back again and think a little on the video that was there, that child was very, very clear. He had that final end in mind that there is a traffic jam and I need that traffic to move. It started raining and we need it to move, which means my initiative that I take is I'm going to try and move that tree trunk from there. So it was very clear. That is what our students need to understand. The next most important, the first 2 come in very easily. I'm sure most of us as teachers, we already do that in our classrooms. The next habit is put first things first. Do we actually balance out all these key priorities that we have? We need to get our students to be able to plan and actually manage everything. The little ones have a tendency to do a lot of things together. You know, you give them toys to play with, they're all confused. They want to play with this one also, they want to play with this one also, and they want to play with this one also. Net result, not reaching an end of anything. So you need to start with them for something as simple as this, that you've started one particular game, whether it is a board game or any other toy, let's complete that first. Once we've completed, then let's put that back and then we go to the next one. So get them to do that. Whereas same thing for the older students, if you see, which are like, you know, I would say 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, it's good to multitask, but for the fact that they do so many assignments and everything together in one go, that nothing reaches a completion. They are unable to prioritize what is it that is important because they have to go and play, which is important. That is that age group when it wants to start going to gym and it wants to be conscious of their body, which is very, very important. It needs to party, very important for that age group. They need to be with their friends. Once all of that is done, they need to complete the homework that has been given to them. They need to prepare for the assessment which is coming in. They need to prepare for maybe college admissions or whatever. So there is so much which is happening. How do you get them to prioritize? Teach them the skill of actually using a calendar. You know how we as adults, we use the calendar, we mark, get them to do that. I have seen students in colleges, to be honest, my own son as well, the skill had to be taught to him, that how do you use the calendar as well? You know, how do you actually do that time management? So get them with this fact of put first things first. Prioritization is extremely important for our children to understand. And when all this is done, that means they've achieved their own victory. That means for their own self, they've done it. Next habit that comes in is think win-win. When I say win-win, it means win-win for everyone. That is when your teamwork, collaboration starts coming in. For you to be able to accept the fact that somebody else can also be better than you. Start accepting. So recognize people's strengths and weaknesses. For everything, just because I have started some work, it doesn't mean I'm the best. There can be other people which are very, very good. The next step that comes in is that you seek first to understand, then to be understood. So this is something as simple as if I say, first listen and then speak. This is in the simplest of terms. That means understand your communication pitfalls that you have. You know, your productive input and output will only come in when you have understood the whole thing, and then you want other people to understand what you are saying. All of us have a tendency that when somebody else is trying to narrate an incident also to you, in your mind, you are very quickly trying to think of another incident which similar happened with you, and you are dying that, you know, let him give you a little pause so that you can quickly button and say, hey, this happened with me also, I had gone there. Be honest, don't all of us have that tendency? How many times are we actually listening to that other person? So we are not, right? So for a student to become a good leader, the main thing that he needs to understand is be a good listener. So overcome those communication pitfalls that you have. And then finally is what habit 6, which is synergize, which is problem solving. You know, when I say problem solving, what I'm trying to say in this case is that there is diversity all around, except that particular fact. Things will be different, people will be different. And if you have to do problem solving, how will you come and do that? So think of ways for that. Do not dictate that these are the 6 steps and everyone does that. Accept everyone's strengths, weaknesses, gaps, and then start working together on it. Once you've done all these 6, publicly, you will be noticed as a person with good leadership skills, even if you do not have that particular title. You will still be recognized for that. And finally, that doesn't end your leadership skill quality. You have to finally again sharpen the saw. That means be a continuous learner, go on improving, pick up something else, start learning something else, maintain a life balance. Don't focus too much on just becoming something, but be happy. I think these 7 habits in a person, consciously if done, will ensure that the person becomes a leader. A lot of times, a lot of people actually put up posters for these in their classroom. These are reminders that this is what needs to be done. This is where you are. There is no, it doesn't need to follow sequentially. It's not necessary that the first thing you have to do is develop habit 1 and then habit 2 and then habit 3. No, it is whichever one you feel that, okay, this is a certain kind of a project which has come in which case I think it'll be a great thing because everyone will win in this. So develop habit 4, which is fine. So go in any order, but everyone to develop these 7. And that's when you will have to get your students to reflect and acknowledge. So if you all identified that one skill which you wanted to develop in you, maybe it could fit into one of these 7 habits. And you can try and focus only on that particular habit and try and develop those. Right? Any thoughts on this? Any example? Anything that you want to relate to? Yes, thank you, Shweta. Stephen Covey, yes. So I can see somebody's written to be able to develop excellent public speaking skills. So which habit do you think you should focus on if that is what you needed to develop? I think this was Nafis, if I am pronouncing the name correct. If you had to develop excellent speaking skills.
Yeah, hello. Good evening. Actually, I'm driving, so okay, I'm unable to speak.
I get it. I'll speak on your behalf then, if that is okay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. So since that was hers, yes, somebody's already written habit 5. Yes, start doing that, because public speaking also really, it's very important that you first understand what you're supposed to be speaking about and then get people to understand you. So I think that is also really true. So start working on these particular aspects. And for your students, if you need, you could put up basic posters like this or start working on them. You know, for the younger ones, it's something as simple as you are in charge. So if you see that there is a student who generally doesn't take the initiative and is always in the background, is one of those shy types, whenever you give them a group work to do, why don't you just go and tap on that student's shoulder and say, hey, you are in charge of this activity. Just ensure that it gets done correctly. So the moment you've done that, you have asked him that be proactive, take the initiative, be responsible and start working on this. And you'll find that that child will actually start doing. So these are those very, very simple things that you can easily start working on. For slightly older ones, you can easily move into the I can statements and you can actually get them to start doing, them on a slightly larger scale. That when we say synergize, what we are trying to tell them is that together is better. So get them to start collaborating and working together. The older ones find it the toughest to collaborate, to be honest, which is very, very true, because somewhere each one has their own mindset and no one is willing to let go of their ideas. So I think the maximum that needs to be done for the older students is basically the 5, 6, 7 that needs to be done. I think a little bit of 4 as well, but habit 4 is usually in the young teens, because in the young teens, those teenagers like the idea that I am the winner. I will always win. The other person can't win. So I think if you see age-wise, you will be able to focus a little on who needs to work on what, and you can easily work on that. Because even if you see on habit 5, a lot on respecting everyone's point of view, accepting different perspectives. So, because you first understand, you listen to what they've said, and then you start giving your viewpoint. And I'm sure the other person also. So imagine the person who's actually speaking to you or discussing this with you also has the same habit, will also listen to you, because that person will also try and understand first and then put forward. So what a collaborative way of working together, I think. It will be so peaceful and you will actually achieve what you need to achieve. Okay. So now for you guys, okay, I've just put these habits on the side so that just as a reference point, just some questions. What one thing could you do or you aren't doing that if you did on a regular basis would make a tremendous positive difference in life? Which habit do you think this would be? I'll give you an example on this just to make it slightly easier. Now, I generally stay very busy. Okay, my timings are very, very erratic. Okay, anything I do at any time, because it's like I deal with educators across the world. So something that gets left behind is my exercise routine. There are times when I can do it. There are times when I can't do it. I feel terrible about it, but that is something which I think I need to do to bring about a positive difference in my life. Which habit do you think I need to work on a little more? Three. Fantastic. Yes. The next one is I won't step on you, but I won't be a doormat either. Five. Yes. You could even take this as 4 also, depending on how you are taking it. 4 and 5 both would be correct. The idea is correct. Right? So when we say a simple thing like win-win, I'm not trying to say that, always let the other person win. If you are right, you are right. So don't unnecessarily just step down. So that's what the idea is, that I will not step on you, but I will not be a doormat also. It is not that always I will agree to the fact that, okay, fine, I'm wrong, or I don't know how to do it. If I know it, I know it. So be confident about that. So that is also extremely important. Don't blame circumstances for the outcome or the behavior. Most of us have this that we have. We will generally end up saying that, oh, it's because it is like this, that is why you can't have it. Remember that example I gave about the child sitting in Delhi and saying, how is my action affecting actually the polar bear sitting there so far off? Somebody's put it there in the chat. Habit 1. Yes, fantastic. Just be proactive and start doing it. Don't initially only think of it, okay, it's not going to happen. Just imagine if in that video, that little kid had realized that the tree trunk is too heavy, it's so big, what can I do in this? I think everyone would have been stuck there for hours together. Okay, trying to see things from others' viewpoint. Habit 6. Yes, you're right. It's not maybe, it is habit 6. Yes. 2 heads are better than 1. It's again 6. Yes, because you work collaboratively. 2 heads are better than 1. Yeah. I'll just take a pause here. Anything you want to ask me on these? You can just unmute and ask in case if there is anything that you need to ask on this. No? Okay. So keeping all these habits in mind, if these habits are what we need to develop in our students, what are the kind of activities or the strategies that you can use in your classroom, right? Simple thing, play games. There are loads and loads of games that can be played. I know for a fact that usually we relate playing games to only the little ones, only to pre-primary. But playing games right till adults, I think, is really important to develop these habits. If you see, most of you as educators, I'm sure in your school as well, you must be having these certain days when you have these team building activities and all of those kind of stuff. The idea behind that is only to be able to develop these skills or these habits that you want. So even for older ones, sometimes leave the physics, chemistry, maths, history, geography, and just play a game. One is that you will have every student participating in it. As a result, it's easier to develop these skills, and you play games. Most important. The next that comes in is volunteer roles. For younger ones, you can give them very simple, roles. Like, something like, can you go and pick up that particular laptop from the ICT lab and bring it to the class? The moment you start giving them these kind of little roles to do, that you are going to be my ICT champ, you are my ICT runner, you are the person who's going to be doing that. What you have given to him is take up the responsibility. It is yours. Be careful you don't drop it. The child will ensure that he gets it in good condition and gives it back in good condition. So these are extremely important. Of course, for the older ones, there are a lot of roles that can be given. You can make them leaders with responsibility. You can't ensure that, you have maybe somebody for the newsletter, the magazine coordinator. Those are the ones which you give to the older ones. Whereas to the younger ones, they can be your light monitor. They can be your line monitor. They can be the ones who pick up all the notebooks and stack them back. They can be responsible for ensuring that all the chairs and desks are in proper conditions. So basically give them a lot of responsibility. Do that on a rota basis so that everyone gets these. Of course, there are a lot of developmental activities that come in. There are a lot of websites which are available. Be creative to find those. Role play, I think, is one of the most important aspects that you can work on, because role plays will cover up all the other activities or most of your leadership skills. Give them those crisis situations, give them little problems to solve and try and get them to solve those. And they'll form a systematic way. They will keep the end in mind, and then they will start doing that. To do a lot of that. Get onto a lot of brainstorming sessions. A lot of times we start a particular concept in class and we start teaching it. Instead, give the 2 minutes just for brainstorming on that. Just write the concept on your board or on a piece of chart paper or whatever you use and tell them what are your thoughts on it. Can you brainstorm on this? Get them to sit together and start working in a group. They're just getting their ideas together. Again, what is coming up is that everyone can win, and it is accepting other point of view. It is also first you understand and then you want to be understood. So those are the habits that will start actually getting inculcated in your students. Debates, and everyone knows. Leadership journals, try and get them to write journals for them, right? That they should be able to write what is it that they've done. And for older ones, it's extremely important because that is going to be the preparation for their college admissions. It helps them create their portfolios for their college admissions. Can you think of some leadership assessments? Leadership assessments can be something as simple as that when you give a situation to them and they solve it, see who was the person who took charge, who was the person who was proactive, and you as a teacher actually make a note of that. You will be able to find that there are some students who are extremely proactive. So that means that child's habit 1 is very, very good. But that could be a child who's also very authoritative. That is a child who doesn't wait to understand. So I think that's the habit. And in your assessment, start writing and making notes of those, that I need to give this to listen first and then take a call. So your activities will become more specific for each child and specific for that particular skill. Otherwise, we end up giving like a complete big plethora of all these skills, and we hope like hell that a child develops all of them. It can't happen. You will have to focus on each child. You will have to focus on each skill for that child. Of course, get them to make their own personal mission or their goal. Like I told you, that identify that one skill which you need to develop in, and they'll be able to do that. The rest of them, I think, are very, very clear. I think most of you must be doing it. I'm sure there are leadership workshops that happen. There are a lot of guest speakers. Give them a lot of questions to ponder on, just like that. Just let's have a discussion on it. So get them to talk on that. A lot of case studies, talk about big people, what they are doing and how they are leaders without a title. That's most important. Don't give examples of people with titles. Always discuss people which have no titles. So how are you going to follow the whole school approach? As a school, what you need to do is you need to first define what is it that you need. That means you start discussing that what is leadership. To your students, tell them that you want them, each one of them, to have a leader in them. So they need to start believing in the fact that to be a leader, it is in me. It will begin with me. Every child should resonate with that particular thought. Then you plan out those 7 habits. So if you have those 7 habits, and when you are thinking for your subject, a particular concept to be delivered in class, try and see which is the habit that is most suitable for it. And who are the children you are actually going to be on the lookout for, that will they develop this or not. So have that very clear. You don't need to think of a separate activity. Do it within that, what you are doing. Give them a lot of opportunities to show that they have got these leadership skills. I know you as an educator, you will be able to identify the gaps, but give them a chance to actually showcase and celebrate what they have achieved. So that is what your final reflect and reward should be. Celebrate those. Identify, help them in your class. Why don't you just say that, oh, you've been a great leader today because you've achieved your goal of maybe learning trigonometry and getting all your answers right. You've achieved your goal of writing 4 sentences correctly. Maybe for your little one, that much is enough. And that means he's been a leader. So why not? So acknowledge all of those. When each one of you does that in your class, in your subject, in your lesson, I think it becomes like a whole school approach. And that is where you will find that each one of them is going to grow up to be an effective leader who will bring about that change and who will bring about that sunshine, what we need for everyone. So I end on this, that I really hope that the leadership lesson doesn't become like that and I've actually just fallen off the cliff. I hope you're all there with me and I've not fallen off the cliff. So this is just on the lighter note. I leave it open to all questions.
Yes, teachers, if there are any questions, any ideas that you would want to share, if there are no questions.
It's a great idea to share with the other teachers also as well, how you do it in your own school or in your own class.
I think Shweta has a question asking on clarification on service learning.
Yes. So when I say service learning, it's more to do with basically doing it for the society, taking it out. So what we are trying to do is, like, if you have maybe very young, I don't know what is the grade that you teach. If you teach the younger ones, service learning is even, just going out and moving and being empathetic, maybe are helpers in the school only. So maybe your didis or the bhaiyas, the drivers, the mali and everyone. Slightly older ones, like, okay, Shweta, grade 5, why don't you get them to go to maybe an old age home? Try and take them there, try and get them to do that service. So what is it that they will do? Plan out that whole project, get them to do it. So that is where you start, because they start doing that in supporting and helping others. I'm sure everyone would start doing that. And of course, I'm sure the older ones do a lot of community service. They go into the underprivileged sections and they kind of, I know for people who go and teach outside, they give books and stationaries and all of that stuff. I think Loris also raised her hand.
Yes, hi, Sonia. Thank you for this session. It's been enlightening so far. And I think I was really struck by, the first thing that you said at the beginning about not having a title and how that's really not necessary. But I do have a question, because what I noticed both in adults and children is that, they feel like if they have a title, we tend to step up to that title that we have. Not only, do we tend to step up to the title that we have, but also it kind of gives that respect from others, because I found that some of my students, even though they are leaders, but because they are not like the leader of the day or, whatever title there is, it seems like they don't want to follow, and they would rather follow whoever the leader of the day is. So what do you think of that?
So perfect. Good question. So when I say that a leader need not have a title, nowhere am I denying the fact that you should not give titles, right? That is right. So if you have a class of say 24 students, I'm sure you will have certain students within your class who will have that title, distribution monitor, lunch monitor, line monitor, all of those you will have. What I'm trying to say is like what you said, that the others will generally have a tendency to just follow them. What we are trying to inculcate in them is that you are also a leader. So you used a very nice word where you said leader of the day. So it's a great idea, I think. I don't know how you do it, but it just gave me that idea. You could either do it that one by one you make a child leader of the day, or do it the other way. Why don't you tell everyone that during the day, I'm going to be observing, and at the end of the day, I'm going to give you a little badge that says leader of the day, and that is going to be your reward, right? So as a result, we find everyone trying to be cordial, being collaborative. So we are inculcating those. Nowhere am I denying that, don't give a title. The idea that I was trying to say was, when I say that leadership does not mean student council, what I was trying to say was that it is not just those people who are the student council, that they are the leaders. Actually, everyone is a leader, and we need to inculcate those values.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I like that idea of the badge at the end, Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes. Yeah, Ruchira, you wanted to add?
Yeah, just wanted to add a little thought here. I understand that we all give little leadership roles in classrooms, and I think it's been an age-old practice. We've been just doing that when I think we all were young. We used to get titles in the class, or being a class monitor for the day or for the week, and so on and so forth. And as Laurie said, sometimes if they are not given that title, they would just not take up their responsibility. So that is where we, as the educators of today, have to play a role, a very important and critical role, where we inculcate this as a habit in them. We've been talking about these 7 habits. We inculcate these as habits, that you have to be a leader at every step. You have to be a problem solver. It is not just the role. It is not how the individuals around you are doing. You are able to take a decision and see that it is my presence, my role, that is going to make a difference here. First to myself, and then to my surroundings, and then to my school as a whole, and then to my community as a whole. If I'm able to understand that, if I'm self-aware, if I'm emotionally strong to be able to take such kind of decisions, I think they are on the right path. And if these habits are inculcated from a very young age, as Sonia has been saying, when they grow old, it becomes a little difficult for us to inculcate these habits. They would not want to work in teams. They would not be able to see the others in the team winning certain times the titles or roles, or sometimes getting better grades than them. So if these habits, these skills are inculcated from them within a time frame of, say, the primary education time frame, I believe they'll be able to lead the world and be better in their professional spaces as well. I think all of us in our professional spaces have been able to see conflicts happening around us. And why are these conflicts in place? Because people are not aware of what is happening within themselves. If I've had a fight with my spouse during the day, and I go to my school, everybody in the school would know ma'am is not in a good mood. She's not going to accept what is she saying. And I think I've been hearing that since ages. We've been talking about, like that, about our teachers. I have heard that from my students, about myself, about my peers, that ma'am is not in a good mood. Why would somebody say that? Because I'm not aware of what's happening within me. I'm not able to control my emotions. So we, as leaders of the day to day, have to inculcate these as an ongoing process for them. If that is doable, I think let's all join hands to do that.
Yes, I think very well said, Ruchira. Very quickly, there are two more questions. I think Ranjita had a question that what about the students who sometimes do not accept failure? So the idea is, how do we decide who's a winner? You know, sometimes for that particular student who's made an effort, but is not able to achieve that final goal, if it's at repeated terms, I think just his effort, why don't we recognize his effort? Maybe, you know, somewhere you can tell him that, hey, you've been a great leader for just being persistent on doing it again and again. So I think if you start acknowledging that particular aspect also, the child understands that I may not have achieved it, I'm still winning. I think that is important so that the child doesn't give up. Like, you know what, when that word cloud was being formed, a lot of you wrote that, you know, don't give up. That is what is important for the child. There's also a question on few strategies for assessment, something as simple as how do you track this? Remember the skills, I am always a believer that skills are a continuous process of development. Very difficult to grade skills. You know, how do I say that I'm a good collaborator? I mean, if you ask me on a scale from 1 to 10, obviously I will turn around and say 10. How can you say that I'm 8? It's very difficult. How will you give a number to it? So I think the best way is when you have these, if you have those 7 habits for children, at least till grade 8, I think if you have school diaries or your journals or your planners or whatever, get each child to write out these 7 habits and make a little band in front of it. And that band is nothing but a continuum, where every time a child feels that he's done that one extra step towards a particular habit, he kind of makes a little hoop on it, that he's moved on ahead. That child will start feeling, and you as a teacher just keep noticing that he would have moved from the start line. He may not reach till the finish line, but at least he has moved on it. And that's a constant motivation for the child to keep moving. The child will see the gaps on their own. They will see the habit 3 is something I'm not doing. I need to start working on it. So it's a self-assessment that the child will be able to do. And for older students, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the educators who are here, I would request that any big project which they end up doing, anything where they have taken that extra step, you know, acknowledge it, because for them, being acknowledged in a particular thing is a big thing. Because at that age, somehow compliments and acknowledgements actually take a back seat. And what they always hear is, this is not going right with you. You know, you need to get more marks. You are not doing this, you will not get college admissions. So start acknowledging, start giving them those little things which will motivate them, and trust me, helps them build the portfolio for college admissions. So I think that is extremely important. It also gives them those that recognition that these are my skills. So if I'm going for my college admissions, I can talk about it. I can boast about the fact that yes, I'm a good communicator. I'm a good, you know, collaborator. So these are examples. They will have to do that. So help them achieve that. Any other questions?
Okay, great. I think I'm getting already to hear these few compliments for the session, Sonia. That as you rightly said, that there's a particular age we stop, you know, giving those kind of acknowledgements or compliments to the students. I believe each one of us needs it. So those have already started coming in for you and for the session. Thank you so much on behalf of Shrimandy to, you know, having conducted this session, to be able to talk about certain important habits, certain critical habits, with so many examples that teachers, I believe, here can take it to their classrooms. And that was the idea, that we are able to implement these. These have not been terminologies that we need to remember as definitions. However, certain you know, things that can be very well implemented in the classrooms. Thank you so much for taking this time out for, you know, enlightening all of us. And at the same time, I would also like to thank Shrimandy for providing all of us this platform to be able to discuss such ideas. And we wish to conduct many more such webinars. Any one of you who looks forward for some kind of support to develop skills in your students. I understand that as teachers, as Sonia had also rightly mentioned, that everybody is in a rush of completing portions sometimes, because we know that there are assessments, there is a test that is going to happen, we need to complete portions. However, and we all may be experts with our subjects, but at the same time, we need that kind of support on how do I inculcate the skill building as a habit in the classroom and not as something additional that comes for the students or that comes for me as a teacher. So in case you're looking for that kind of support on how skill building can become a part of your curriculum teaching, please write to us at collaborate@shimanli.com. We would definitely wish to get back to you and let you know how Shimanli, who has teachers sitting across the globe, would help you deliver these skills into your classrooms and support you at every step. Thank you so much. We are looking forward to many more sessions and keeping in touch with all of you here so that we can start discussing these topics of importance and bring in solutions, as many solutions as possible. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening ahead.
Thank you.
Sonia ma'am, hello.
Yes.
Hello. Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah,
Sorry for the interruption. Ma'am, will we get this recording?
Yes,
Ruchira?
we'll share the recording. Yes.
No, that's great. Thank you so much, ma'am. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, Nafis.
Thank you. Thank you.